Yo, yo, yo. It's another episode of Jets Talk with Umbro and TomO. It's your boy in the beanie, Mike Umbro here. We've got Tom, of course, on the other side. Tom, how's everything going this week?
Everything's going, man. Everything's going well, man. I honestly just can't wait to talk about this Jets win.
Dude, it's pretty significant in a lot of ways, and we're going to definitely get to it. But just to kind of kick things off here, you're going to notice it says Emperor Travis on the bottom of our screen. My colleague here, or my buddy here, Travis, he's a Rams fan, and he's hurting just as much over this game as I am. So, Travis, if you want to show everybody that beautiful, handsome face of yours and say what's up real quick.
Hey guys, how's it going? Rams fan over here, Travis, here to talk some Rams, and I'm just as sad as everyone else is during this horrible time. I actually was able to watch the game with Mike Umbro this past Sunday, and weird part about it is that the entire time it was almost like through the entire game we were not panicking. Like we thought that the Rams were always going to come back, no matter if it was like 6 minutes left and you guys still had 3 points on us or a touchdown on us. We at all times we were completely fine, and I was jokingly sending Snapchats to my friends, like drinking more and more throughout the day, watching this game progress, and then when it finally happened, I kind of turned over to Mike and in awe, and I'm still kind of shocked. It's been a couple days now, and I still have nothing really to say besides what the hell happened.
I 100% agree with you. And, we're down in our wine. And as the Rams are starting to come back in the end, we're cheering, we're giving each other high fives. I'm the worst Jets fan on the planet. It is what it is, but it's for the greater good. So, Travis, what did you think was the overall, thinking about the game, what were the biggest takeaways that you thought played the biggest impact and actually, resulting in a Rams loss?
Sure. Before I start, I just want to say that when Mike asked me to come on here a week ago, before the Rams and Jets game came on, I was prepared to come on here and be like, hey, the Rams used to be like this. We used to be, 0-16, and you could be like us one day. But no, now I'm on here talking about why the Rams fucking lost to almost defeated team. So I'll say that. But the reason why we lost is because whenever Jared Goff comes out not firing, when he comes in scared, it just looks like we're going to lose the game. And honestly, I don't watch Jets games that often. The only thing I do know about the Jets is what I hear from your podcast. But you guys came out absolutely firing on all cylinders, and I was looking at you when we were watching this game like, how do you guys not have one win on the season if you look like this every game? But honestly, when it comes to the Rams, we always play to our opponents, and this time we played to a defeated team.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing. Obviously, we all know that Jared Goff from time to time can put out a stinker, a $130 million stinker. But listen, man, as a Jets fan right now, you're looking at Sam Darnold. He hasn't played like that all year. You're looking at the likes of Frank Gore, making catches like he's 23, and Quinnen Williams looking like Aaron Donald. By the way, Aaron Donald was a no-show for the game as well. That whole Rams defense just looked lost. I think they were so amazed by the idiocracy of Adam Gase's Jets offense that they didn't even know what to do. The Jets offense is so bad, it's good. It's almost like one of those Sharknado movies or something.
Your offensive line was absolutely bullying us, whether it was run or pass. And honestly, when we were watching the game together, I know that Aaron Donald doesn't take every single snap. But when we were watching the game together, he wasn't in a lot in the first half. And I was wondering why that was happening. And, it got to a point where we were down bad, and he started kind of getting that, juices flowing in. But it shouldn't have to take that for us to, take an NFL team seriously.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you're getting paid to play, and especially, listen, the Jets are what they are. Adam Gase, tank god. It is what it is. But when you're the Rams and you're in a position to win the division on the spot against a winless Jets team, how are you not pumped up to just throw our faces in the ground and just take it for yourselves? They didn't really run the ball that well, which was shocking to me because that's kind of the Rams' bread and butter. You didn't see a lot of bootlegs like you normally see from the Rams offense. I think Sean McVay got a little too cute for a team that didn't really need all that, an extra difficult game plan. Just from my takeaway. Tom, do you have anything that you wanted to say in regards to this game and, what kind of impact maybe, a certain play or players or scheme?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, for the Jets, really what it came down to is, especially with a team like the Rams, I mean, their defense is scary. It really is. I mean, it's just filled with playmakers. You got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. They were pretty much non-existent, and I think that really came into the game plan for the Jets in the sense that they didn't turn the ball over. That was the name of the game for them. It shows a lot that their defense can actually do something a little bit some of the time. When they're not turning the ball over, they're not always on the field. So.
Yeah, 100%.
The funny part about it is, and I'm just talking about it as a Rams fan, is that and we live in a New York area, so a lot of our friends are Jets fans. I was getting so many text messages and DMs from people that were just as mad that the Jets lost. That the Jets won as I was. And it was almost as if, like, the Jets fans are blaming the Rams' poor play for the fact that they aren't able to pick up this new Trevor Lawrence pick. And I just think it's crazy. The Jets, in a way, lost this game as well as won. And it just because they weren't able to lock up this future pick. I don't know. That's something I've never seen before.
It's utterly ridiculous. And Travis, we're going to move on to the next segment in a minute now that you said that. But overall, I want you to give us your take on what the Rams need to get fixed to, make a run in the playoffs and ultimately reach the Super Bowl, which you and I thought was totally possible 3 days ago.
Yeah. We play the Seahawks and Cardinals in the next two games, so two divisional teams. If we win both those games, we'll still come out as the leader in the division. So very possible for us to make the playoffs. I think for us, we just need to have that fire again. Our defensive front line needs to, really kick the quarterback's ass. And once we have that again, and I think that we will, because we're playing two divisional games and the playoffs are on the line at this point, that the Rams will be fine. But I'm definitely as disappointed as all Jets fans are right now for that horrible loss that the Rams have put up this past week. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and I'm glad that I was able to be your first guest star as the Rams
100%.
lose for my team. All right, see
Travis,
you guys later.
Thanks a lot, man. It's a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we can do this again one day. All right, now that that part's out of the way, we're going to get to the fun part. Travis obviously mentioned the fact that the Jets lost by winning, which seems to be the ongoing theme the past couple of days. And, for those of you who don't necessarily understand that, I'm going to paint you a picture, right? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is the prize at the end of the tunnel, right? He was the reason for the tank. He was the guy, the savior, the king of New York, the sunshine with the mane and the blonde, luscious hair and that freaking beautiful stature. So think of it this way, Tom. You ready for this? So you're dating for a while. The Jets, Trevor Lawrence, are kind of dating. They get engaged last week. It's time for your bachelor party, right? So you're going to Los Angeles, you're going to Rams Stadium, right? We'll call it the strip club, right? Take your boys, you're going to the strip club. You're feeling yourselves. You're taking a couple shots. You're putting up some points. You're feeling nice. The morale is high, right? You get through half the night, drinks are still up. You should be slowing down a little bit because, you got a long night. Your fiance's waiting for you at home, but now it's a couple more shots, right? It's the fourth quarter, right? We hit that 2-minute warning mark. Start buying some strippers, right? Because you're getting close to the end of the night and, why not? Let's get a couple of strippers. You get a little booty in your face, right? Things are looking good. The strippers are looking bad, but at the end of the day, or the end of the night, I should say, you forget you have a fiance waiting for you at home. But instead of remembering the moment and instead of remembering the future that you have together as a lovely couple, you decide to say, screw it and get her done. Right? You get her done. And now think about what you've lost. Not only have you lost a 10 out of 10 smoking hot fiance to be with you for the rest of your life, but you're also lost the foundation for an amazing future. You lost you lost your kids. You lost the in-laws that you loved so much. The in-laws that wanted to be a part of your, right? You just lost everything. And to put it back into football terms, right? You lose leverage as far as potentially trading back. You lose, obviously, the all-star pro college quarterback. You lose out on potential head coaching candidates who might have considered coaching your sorry-ass team, right? So now you get out of the, what do you call it when the stripper takes you in? The VIP room, right? And your friends, i.e., Jet fans, are looking at you like, dude, the fuck are you doing? Right? So you go in there and you lose everything for what? Tell me, Tom O'Connor. Tell me.
For
What's
peanuts
it all
compared
for?
to what they had. Peanuts.
For a quick nut, Tom. A quick, drunken, meaningless nut. That's what it was for. And you lost everything. And now you've got to go back to the dating scene. Tier 2 head coaches. Quarterback prospects in the draft who might not even be as good as Sam Darnold is right now. Right? Free agents who will probably sign with you just because they have nowhere else to go as opposed to getting the top tier guys. You lose everything with this number 1 pick because Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. your fiance, was the key to it all. All for a quick nut. Thank you. So that's kind of the way I see it. And
that's some passion right there,
dude. I was thinking about that in the shower this morning. But anyway,
crying.
So I guess it is what it is. So the first question, TomO, is do the Jaguars have a chance against either the Bears or the Colts within the next 2 weeks to potentially move back down to that number 2 spot? And if so,
well, I mean, yeah, I think definitely with the Bears they have a chance. To be honest with you, the only reason the Bears have a great defense. It's not like I think Jaguars will be able to score a ton on them, but they could turn the ball over and lose the game with their offense really. And then in terms of the Colts, I believe that's the Jaguars' only win this season. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So that's their only win this season. So I mean, again, it's so hard to beat a team multiple times in the season, even if it is in your division.
Yep.
And the Colts are actually, in my opinion, a very good team right now. So I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Colts again. But yeah, I mean, it's possible they beat the Bears, but likeliness not looking good.
Yeah, especially when Mitchell Trubisky, of course, of all guys, is playing the best football of his life. But I mean,
your boy Mitch Trubisky. You would love if the Jets had him.
Boy, was I wrong about him, man. Well, unbelievable. And at this point, 2 weeks from now, if the Jets are still sitting there at number 2, I hope I'm wrong about Trevor Lawrence. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to be the GOAT 10 years from now. We're going to figure that out pretty soon. But
that's the issue. That's the issue with it is, I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence and you don't find question marks. You're not left wondering. All of his problems are fixable.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. That's what you're losing out on, right? Instead of getting a guy like Eric Bieniemy to come in here and coach Trevor Lawrence, you're getting Doug Peterson because he couldn't make Carson Wentz work, right? Or, Bill O'Brien, right? You're stuck with those tier 2 guys instead of somebody who can come in here and, really instill a brand new program, somebody to come in and give you hope. Instead, you're stuck with a tier 2 head coach and most likely Sam Darnold at the end of the day, unless the Jets do decide to go in a different direction at quarterback and it's not Trevor Lawrence. So the question is what now, right? So Tom and I have wrote down a scenario of 6 different draft scenarios to take on here and, which one of which is going to be most likely and so forth. So obviously the first thing that the Jets might consider doing at this point, you look at staying put at number 2 and taking Justin Fields, who is the all consensus number 2 guy right now. Not in my eyes, but I do digress. Do you think that's likely?
I think that's very likely.
What the Jets should do?
So I think it's very likely. Like you said, he's the consensus number 2 guy. He hasn't done enough to, I would say kick himself out of that number 2 yet. He did not play well last week, in my opinion. And anybody who watched that game, I think he lost his draft stock dropped quite a bit. I think that, to be honest with you, the Jets, when you have so many problems that, one position isn't just going to solve it all. So for the Jets, getting, Justin Fields is no longer, Trevor Lawrence. With Trevor Lawrence, again, we're not looking at those question marks. You get him. Yes, it doesn't solve anything, but it certainly helps a lot. When you look at someone like Justin Fields, it's, okay, we get him. Yes, it'll help us most likely, but we still have all these other holes. Is it even going to be worth it while he's still on his rookie contract, right? So it's tough. It's a really tough decision, as it wasn't originally, and now it's like we're looking and we're actually discussing these situations. So it's fun to talk about. I have my, my idea of what I think the Jets should do, but
yeah, we're going to go through every scenario for sure. So, listen, my take on Fields after last Saturday, I watched the whole game. It's 2 things. 1, he can't carry a team in big moments. That's the biggest thing. That's not necessarily a guy at quarterback you want to take a risk on at number 2 overall. And then he struggled, man, in terms of throwing outside the numbers. I don't care who you have at wide receiver. Listen, man, you're playing Northwestern at the end of the day, who are actually, despite the lack of talent they have on that squad, they are extremely well coached and they play aggressive, right? The Jets have actually put their homework into the Northwestern head coach, Pat Fitzgerald, who, we'll see. I wouldn't be mad if he was considered, but, that's a topic for another day. But listen, am I personally taking Fields at number 2? Absolutely fucking not. Is it likely? We'll see how he does in the combine and in interviews and things of that nature. And we'll see how obviously the rest of the season goes.
I think the thing with
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the thing with Justin Fields is I think he's going to test really well overall at the combine. I think, during the throwing drills, obviously his 40, I think he'll run, in mid 4.4s probably. The guy can move. He's strong. But I don't think, I think as we're discussing, I don't think that's the issue so much. You know what I mean?
Especially because Sam Darnold came out firing on all cylinders against the Rams, who are supposedly or allegedly this all-star defense with the likes of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. He torched them when he couldn't do anything against another team all year long, right? So a lot of question marks there. So option number 2 is the Jets stay put and potentially go with a different quarterback outside of Justin Fields with the pick. How likely is that? And is that the direction they should go?
Well, it's obviously hard to say at this time how likely that is. I definitely think it is very likely. I've seen a couple people say, I've seen Zach Wilson's name thrown around a lot at that number 2 spot. Yep. I don't like that at all. Honestly, right now, where we're at in the season, in terms of college football, in terms of, NFL, right now, the only question is Justin Fields, in my opinion, for in terms of quarterback number 2. But I I wouldn't surprise me to see them go someone like Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean,
we see it year in and year out. For example, the Giants, they taken Daniel Jones 2 years ago, and Dwayne Haskins on the board. Now, obviously, Daniel Jones is much better, but at the time, everybody thought this, everybody thought that, and look how it happened. So you never know, but
yeah, I mean, listen, at this point in time, if that were the case and the Jets did decide to go with a different quarterback at number 2, I'd still be pretty pissed off because you don't take one of these guys at number 2. That's just my opinion. But you know how I feel about Trey Lance. And if he's on our squad and if that's really the direction they decide to go, I mean, all right, they could have probably got him later or moved up into the teens to go get him. But, at least they got their guy. So, I mean, I don't think that's very likely. I think it's, I think at this point, because Justin Fields is so highly touted as that number 2 guy in comparison to everybody else, it's just difficult to say, at least for right now, that if they do take a QB at 2, it's not going to be Justin Fields.
Agreed.
Even though I also disagree with that. Option number 3, the Jets stay put and go with the likes of Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase or Micah Parsons or another one of these blue chip guys. I think it's more likely than the first 2, just because of the way I feel like things are going to shake out with the other quarterbacks. I love Penei Sewell. I think we've been blessed the past couple of years with offensive tackles that have just been extremely talented and have made instant impacts. And I feel just as highly about this man over here. Do you take a receiver at number 2? I'm not 100% sure. If I had to choose between any of the other blue chip guys, it would be Penei Sewell, even though George Fant on the right tackle spot has played relatively well for the Jets. Tom, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it perfectly. The best way I could put it in perspective of how good, and I know we're both extremely high on him, but Penei Sewell is so good.
Yeah.
The best way I can honestly compare him, he is right now the Trevor Lawrence of the left tackle position. That's how good this man is. I saw some crazy stat the other day that he had about it was like 1,400 pass sets in terms of like pass plays since his career at Oregon, and he's let up 0 sacks. So it's literally just insane. Like, the guy is literally the next great Hall of Fame left tackle. So when I look at this whole situation, I think it's very possible and very likely, to be honest with you, that they do go Penei Sewell. You start off that with Mekhi Becton on one side and Sewell on the other. I know Sam Darnold hasn't been amazing. He shows promise every once in a while, just like last week. If you can keep that man standing upright and help him out a little bit, I think that does a lot more than just getting a quarterback that might do the same thing as Sam Darnold.
Yep. And listen, just because I am so high on Sewell, I think it would be a no-brainer. Unless you get blown away with a team looking to trade up to maybe take a quarterback. Now, the question, if that is the case, let's say the Jets do take Sewell at 2. Do you put Sewell at left and put Mekhi at right, or vice versa? What do you think?
I think Sewell's a little bit more versatile. I think he's better than Becton. I really do already. And I know Becton's been in the league, and that's such a crazy thing to say, but I truly do think that. I think he's that good. So I think they would actually put Sewell on the right side, to be honest with you, because Becton's doing so well on the left side. There's no reason to move him.
Totally. Now, on the flip side, and I think you're right when you say that, but I think on the flip side, because Mekhi Becton is such a mauler, and you see how he puts guys on their asses literally every run play and just moves guys out of the way, it might also make sense to put him on the right. And Sewell being a little bit more of that pure pass protector that Mekhi wasn't, allegedly, when he was coming out. I also think Becton is a pretty good pass protector. But
I do too.
Would it make more sense to put more of a pure pass pro guy on the left-hand side? You could argue either way, but it's obviously a very good problem to have. And then you take a guy like George Fant, maybe kick him into guard. and then you figure out what to do with the left guard and center position or the right guard and center position, and obviously take it from there.
Yeah, and
Now,
I actually totally agree with you in terms of I think that in terms of actual fit, Makai should go on the right side and Siwa should go on the left side. But I'm just kind of rolling with the it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. You know what I mean? Like why screw with the guy's development?
yeah, 100%. I totally agree. So at that point, it's up to whoever the next head coach is going to be. I hope to God it's not Adam Gase. This one has me questioning everything, literally everything. All right.
I think it was like a one last like fu to the Jets. He's like I'm actually going to put in some effort this game and know my my defensive coordinator's plays are.
Yep. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Fuck, man. All right. Option number 4. We're going into the trade down options now. So the first trade down option, you trade down and you address the quarterback situation with a guy like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, or even if Justin Fields does slip, right? It is likely. I'm going to stop asking because at this point, everything is likely. But out of the 4 choices we presented so far, would you put that at the top of the list at the moment?
It's definitely something they're going to talk about and they're going to think about. I wouldn't put it at the top of the list. I mean, the second pick is just it's such a high pick. You don't ever want to have that pick again. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's something that's very hard to trade back. If they do trade back, I don't think it's outside the top 10. They lose a lot of value just like, that quickly. But, it's definitely an option. It's definitely something they're going to think about, especially if, there's a couple quarterbacks that they feel, I wouldn't say they love, but they feel comfortable with taking, farther down the line. I think it's something they think about. But, with quarterbacks, you have to either love them or you don't love them. So,
yeah.
It's
and
tough.
I think you
really
see that mistake all the time with teams who like a guy enough to, just have him, right? Because you have to draft a quarterback, but they're not in love with him. And they don't put the pieces around him to make him actually successful. Unlike any other position, and people don't always realize this, when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you invest in that. He's your future, right? So based on scheme fit, coaching, scheme fit, right? What personnel matches best? That's why you want to grab a guy like Trevor Lawrence because you can literally surround him with anything. You can put him into any scheme and you're going to be okay, right?
He's not a system quarterback by any means. He can really go and do anything.
Right.
So now, one thing I was thinking about as well in terms of if the Jets did trade down, I think another reason that they might do that is if they wanted that receiver position. So I know we were talking about it a little earlier. I think that, receivers too undervalued of a position to be taken that high in the draft. I understand right now we have such a good receiver class. The top 3 guys, you really can't go wrong in my opinion. Yep. The top 2 could potentially be consistent all pros, things like that.
I agree.
So I could possibly see, them saying, okay, I don't want to pick a receiver at 2, but I think that's the route they wanted to go and they fall in love with the receiver. I could see them trading down to potentially get a receiver.
Yeah, and that's actually the next step we're gonna talk about here. Obviously, if they trade down and address quarterback, they have to fall in love with the guy, and that's kind of what you and I are both saying at this point. If the Jets trade down and go with another position, right? Obviously, we talk about offensive line, we talk about receiver, whether it's Sam Darnold or somebody else at QB, you got to help the guy out, right? So I thought of a little scenario because I do think this is very, very likely depending on the offer that they get. And obviously, let me preface this. If you're Joe Douglas, even if you say you're sticking with 2 no matter what, you don't hang up the phone. You pick up the phone, you hear out these offers because you never know who's going to blow you away. Justin Fields might come out and play really well in the college football playoffs and kind of resettle the minds of the doubters who saw him play very poorly last week. Maybe he tests really well. And then you get maybe a team like Detroit or Carolina or the Falcons or the Broncos even, or one of these other teams calling up and say, we'll trade you this year and next year's first round pick and a third or a player. So we can go up and take Justin Fields or somebody else, right? Totally possible. I don't think you ever hang up the phone, but other positions of need. We talked about receiver. Obviously, Jamar Chase is the number one. I love me some Jalen Waddle. I love Devontae Smith. I love Rashad Bateman. But then the offensive line comes into question, right? So outside of Penei Sewell, I look at a guy like Wyatt Davis. I look at a guy like, Trey Smith out of Tennessee, guys who could come in and, they won't be like lock and load players who are going to succeed right away, but you would expect them to develop at a pretty quick pace over the course of their first season, right? If you had to, so receiver, lineman, maybe cornerback, depending on where you want to go or where you are in the draft at that point, where you trade down. What's the biggest priority?
Yeah, so just like taking out quarterback, receiver, offensive line, those are definitely number one priorities. But if your question is that we're taking those out, I would say edge, like they really need an edge rusher, cornerback, and linebacker. And then again, that goes into that. This isn't just one thing. This is like the whole team. They have a lot of holes that they need to fix.
Right.
And they have the opportunity to do this. They have 2 first-round picks this year. So in your scenario, they trade back. Maybe, like you said, the Lions, they're 11, I think, right? So the Lions at 11, you could be looking at, a Trey Lance. You could be looking at, Zach Wilson at a quarterback at there. But if you want to go a different position, as we talked about, I think it has to be receiver there if you're going to go that far. Offensive line, I think you lose a lot of value after Penei Sewell. You're really not looking at, top tier linemen at that point, in my opinion. So you have cornerback, edge, linebacker. For cornerback, I definitely think Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain are 2 names to think about. I think they're going to be taken. Perfect. Yeah. I think they're going to be taken too high for the Jets, honestly, to have an opportunity. But if that's what they really want to just fix their defense, Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain, even Sean Wade, that's somebody that could fall, pretty deep in this draft. Yeah. He was originally projected top 10. Now he's in a lot of, second round picks for a lot of, a lot of boards. So it's very possible. A couple other names, Gregory Rizzo. So he's a player from the University of Miami. He opted out this year. It's something that's interesting to kind of look at everything. Right. So yeah, he opted out. He's been training for the draft this entire time. Yeah. He can be in some really good shape.
I agree. See, that's the thing, right? Obviously, we all know with the Jets, even though their defense has a lot of holes, their main priority is offense because they can never seem to put up points. I'm going to lay a scenario out for you, a trade scenario that could be very unlikely because it is between 2 teams within the same division. And then, Tom, I want you to kind of...
It's not happening.
No. So the Miami Dolphins have their franchise guy in Tua Tagovailoa. They need a little bit of offensive line help. They have 2 first-round picks, one of which is number 6, the other one of which is actually going to depend on where they fall in the playoffs and when they actually get the boot from the playoffs. I don't think they're making the Super Bowl. Let's say the Miami Dolphins just package those 2 picks, right? Go up to number 2 to take Penei Sewell, putting the Jets at number 6 to maybe take a Jamar Chase, or, if they happen to fall in love with one of these other guys, the Zach Wilsons, the Trey Lances of the world, or even if Justin Fields slips, if that's really the direction they want to go. And then not only do you have Seattle's pick late in the first round, but then you have Miami's other late first-round pick as well to address a couple of other positions. First of all, I understand it's within the division. It might not be very likely, but it is something to think about. And if you're Joe Douglas and you're hearing out that possible offer, I know what I would do. Would you take that or no?
In 2 seconds, I would take that. That's 3 first-round picks. Probably another one thrown on there. Not necessarily a first round, but another pick thrown on there. Maybe third round, fourth at minimum. Because again, that's the number 2 spot. It's very valuable. I'm taking that in 2 seconds.
Dude, I totally agree. Now, at number 6, who do you take? Right? It's very possible Jamar Chase is still there. It really depends on how the new head coach feels about Sam Darnold. If the new head coach and Joe Douglas can both agree that, Sam Darnold is our guy, let's build. Jamar Chase is there. You take him without question. Later on, you focus on a guy maybe like Wyatt Davis at guard or Trey Smith at tackle. And then, at the end of that, with that other first-round pick, you take maybe an edge rusher or let's say if a Sean Wade or a Caleb Farley falls, you take a guy like that. Now, at 6, let's say they both come together and say, we're going to trade Sam for whatever we can get because we love X. Who do you think is the next guy? Let's take out Justin Fields, right? Because we both agree that Justin Fields is not the guy right now. Who do you take? Is it Trey Lance? Is it Zach Wilson? Is it Kyle Trask?
Yeah, that's a tough one because one thing that I like to think about if we're talking about the 6th pick, so there's going to be 2 people in front of us. That'll be the Falcons, the Panthers. Right. Those are 2 other potentials to possibly go for a quarterback. I would say out of those 2 teams, I would say probably 1 quarterback will go. So just from that, I would say Justin Fields is probably going to be one of them. And if there was going to be another one, it'd probably be Zach Wilson. Or Trey Lance. So I think from what we'll be looking at the 6th pick, we could be looking at, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and Kyle Trask. For the Jets, I think it has to be Zach Wilson or Trey Lance.
Out of those 2, though, who's your guy?
Out of those 2, I'm taking Trey Lance.
Yeah, I agree.
Overall, I think you can't put the trust into a guy that has injury problems in a small frame with a team that's, had so much trouble finding a quarterback for the future.
I totally agree. And outside of Lawrence, we both agree that Trey Lance has the highest ceiling in terms of how successful he can be. So that would be the guy for me as well. We talked about why last week I love Trey Lance and Tom likes Trey Lance.
I love Trey Lance. I love Trey Lance as well. I like all of these quarterbacks. I truly think this is a great quarterback class.
So again, we did discuss a lot of that in great detail last week. Definitely feel free to hit our channel there, like, comment, subscribe for all of our content. And obviously, if you want to watch back on some of our previous content, I obviously will encourage you to do so. And, let me know what other questions you guys have. So with that being said, we kind of know who we like, who we don't like. The most likely scenario is the Jets either take a quarterback at 2, take Sewell at 2, or trade back and either take a quarterback or another position. Obviously, it's very broad in terms of the number of choices that are very likely. But out of those 4, before we move on to the 5th and final option, or I'm sorry, the 6th and final option, which one do you want to see for the Jets and why, ultimately?
Ultimately, I want to see the Jets take Sewell too. You're saying for all the situations, right? I want to see the Jets take Sewell too. Ultimately, I think that would do the most for them as a franchise. I don't think getting a quarterback's going to solve all their problems. They have a competent one at the very least at this time. They can protect him, and then they have another pick in the 1st round. I think that gives them so many more options to be able to keep building around that, that quarterback and that team in general.
Got it. So for me, and this is very contingent on what the offer is, but if the offer is going to blow your socks off 100%, leave Sewell at 2, trade back a few spots, and build this team. Because like we've established already, there's just way too many holes. A quarterback's not going to solve all the issues. Panaisiu solves one or two issues, maybe, right? He has generational talent and a building block. But ultimately, I think if you have the opportunity to bring in 3 first-round guys as opposed to 2 to fill a few spots, you do that, especially given the value and depending on the offer. You could go from 2 to 3 even, or 2 to 4, or 2 to 6, right? And I think that's a lot of that's going to be contingent on how Justin Fields plays in the coming weeks. If he can come out and really ball out, then he's going to solidify his place at number 2. As much as I don't like that, if the Jets end up taking him. But ultimately, I think a trade back makes sense, and I think you fill a lot more holes than just 1 or 2. That's what I'd rather see. Now, the 6th and final option, which it's very unlikely, but the possibilities are endless, would be the Jets trading up with Jacksonville for Trevor Lawrence. Yep. Nope. We should not. You don't do it. But just for the sake of some fun, what would it take, right? Do you invest maybe the 2 first-round picks this year and the 2 first-round picks next year that you invested into Jamal Adams to go get this guy, right? As well as maybe another early round pick. Or, what do you think it would take to move up to number 1 for a guy like this?
I think you said it perfectly. I think it would take both first-round picks this year, both first-round picks next year, and maybe a couple other late-round picks. I honestly think it would take that much. Usually a first-round pick on its own already takes so much to trade up to that spot, even if it is just one position. But we're talking about, in the Jaguars' mind, they're taking Trevor Lawrence. The Jets can take whoever they want. Let's say it's Justin Fields. The talent level in between the gap of those 2 players, in my opinion, Trevor Lawrence is so much better. So, I mean, you're literally just saying, okay, you can have this, but we want everything. And to be honest, I don't think that helps the Jets out either.
I do agree, because then it ruins the purpose of building around a franchise quarterback, basically taking away all the capital that you have to build around your guy. But for the Jets, if you really don't like any of these other guys and you're not sold on Sam Darnold being the guy, is it maybe worth it sacrificing those 3 or 4 first-round picks within the next couple of years to go up and get what is the top guy? That's a question that's going to be yet to be seen between the general manager and whoever the head coach is. I think it's very unlikely. I think there's maybe a 1% chance that happens. But it is an option, and I wanted to just throw it out there to see what your take was, Tom, and also see what you guys out there think. What's the best option out of the 6 that we provided? Is there maybe a trade scenario you want to talk about with us? How significant is this game exactly? And do the Jaguars have an opportunity to come out and beat either the Bears or the Colts, and why? So ultimately, Tom, unless you have any final thoughts, this is the end of our episode this week.
No, my only final thought is keep those picks. Keep getting more and keep those picks. You need to rebuild.
I 100% agree. Rebuild, accumulate picks, and don't salvage your whole future on a guy, because you already did. No need to double down. So with that, it's Tom O'Connor. It's your boy in the beanie, a.k.a. Mike Umbro. This is the end of our episode, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'm looking forward to it, and congratulations to the new guy at your ex's job, the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.